It was a quiet evening, one of those peaceful, uneventful nights where everything felt ordinary. My wife, Megan, sat beside me, immersed in a book, her face calm and unreadable. Nothing seemed out of place. Then, without warning, she closed the book, set it aside, and turned to me. "Frank, we need to talk." Something in her voice made my stomach twist into knots. It wasn't just the words, it was the weight behind them, the way they lingered like she had been holding them in for far too long. I swallowed hard, trying to mask the unease creeping up my spine. "What's up, babe?" I asked, keeping my tone light, though deep down, I could feel the tension thickening around us. She took a slow breath, her gaze locked onto mine as if searching for the right words. Then, softly but deliberately, she said, "I've been thinking about something for a while, and I need to be honest with you." I nodded, my pulse quickening. "Of course. You can talk to me about anything." She hesitated for just a second before saying the words that would shake my entire world. "I think we should consider opening up our marriage." For a moment, I didn't move, didn't breathe. My brain struggled to process what I had just heard. Wait, what? The words tumbled out of my mouth before I could even think. Megan met my gaze, her expression unreadable but firm. "I want us to explore, to experience life and intimacy outside of just us." I could feel my heartbeat in my ears. The room suddenly felt too small. "You mean, you want to sleep with other people?" My voice was barely more than a whisper. She nodded, looking down for a moment before meeting my eyes again. "I love you, Frank, but I feel like I need something more. We've been in this bubble for so long, and I feel like I'm missing out. I want to see what else is out there." I sat there, frozen. My mind raced through a million thoughts at once, confusion, anger, disbelief. "How long have you been thinking about this?" My voice came out quieter than I intended. She hesitated, then answered, "A few months." But I didn't want to bring it up until I was sure. "A few months," I repeated, stunned. "And you've been keeping this from me?" Her lips pressed together as she nodded. "I didn't know how else to say it, Frank. I need this." It felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. This was not the conversation I had expected. Certainly not from my wife, the woman I had loved for 7 years, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone. "Are you serious about this?" My voice wavered now. She exhaled, her expression soft but unwavering. "Yes. I've done a lot of thinking, and I think this is what I need to feel whole again." I looked at her, really looked at her. She wasn't just asking for permission. She was asking me to let her go, to accept that she wanted something I couldn't give her. After a long, heavy silence, I finally spoke. "Megan, I can't do this." My voice was hoarse with emotion. "I love you, but this isn't what I signed up for." She nodded as if she had expected that answer. "I know, and I understand if you're upset, but I have to be honest with myself. And with you." My chest tightened. "Are you asking me, or telling me?" She looked away, then back at me. "I need to know if you'll be okay with it, if you can handle it." I let out a slow, shaky breath. The thought of her with someone else made my blood run cold. "No, Megan." My voice was barely above a whisper. "I can't handle it. I can't share you." Her eyes softened with something between sadness and understanding. "I never meant to hurt you, Frank. But I need to feel something more than what I've been feeling. It's not about you. It's about me." I shook my head, my thoughts scattered. "If you go through with this..." My voice cracked, but I forced the words out. "This marriage is over." Silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. The woman I had built my life with, the woman I thought I would grow old with, was asking for something that shattered everything we had built. And I wasn't sure we'd ever come back from it. That night passed in a blur. We went to bed, but neither of us slept. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, her words echoing in my mind. "I think we should open our marriage." How had we gone from being completely devoted to each other to this? I loved Megan, but now all I could feel was an overwhelming sense of betrayal. Had I missed the signs? The distant silences, the extra time she'd been spending with her new friends. Was I blind to what she needed? The next morning, over coffee, she tried to explain again. Frank, I haven't been planning this behind your back. I didn't mean to blindside you. I just realized it's something I need to explore. It's not about you failing me. It's about something I need for myself. I shook my head, frustration boiling beneath the surface. Megan, I've already told you, I don't agree with this. I don't want an open marriage. I can't just accept it. She sighed, her eyes filled with a sadness that only made it worse. I just need you to try to understand where I'm coming from. I'm not doing this to hurt you. I know, I muttered, my voice low and tired. But I can't share you. I just can't. The weight of those words settled between us, thick and suffocating. No matter how much I loved her, I couldn't make peace with what she was asking. Over the next few days, we barely spoke. Megan was patient, but she didn't let the subject drop. Subtle hints appeared. Books on open relationships left on the coffee table, quiet remarks about new perspectives. It felt like she was already preparing for this new life, while I was still struggling to comprehend it. Then came the night that changed everything. We attended a small gathering with mutual friends. I hadn't wanted to go, but Megan had been eager, so I agreed. As we talked with a couple we hadn't seen in a while, Megan brought up a name I'd been hearing more and more lately. I've been spending a lot of time with Sophie, she said casually, her tone light. I froze mid-sip, my stomach tightening. She's really into the whole open marriage thing and has been giving me advice. She's been so helpful. She said it so easily, as if it were a normal conversation, as if our marriage wasn't crumbling in the process. I watched as she laughed and chatted, completely at ease, while I sat in silence, my world unraveling around me. By the time we got home, I couldn't hold it in anymore. Do you want to be with someone else, Megan? My voice was tight, controlled, but inside I was breaking. Is that what this is really about? Because I can't keep pretending this is just an idea. She looked at me surprised, but I saw it, guilt flickering in her eyes. It's not about that, Frank, she said softly. It's about me, not you. I love you. I want to be with you. But I feel like I need to experience life differently. Please try to understand. I stared at her, lost. There was nothing left to say. The weight of her words crushed me. And in that moment, I realized, for me, our marriage was already over. The thought of sharing her with someone else made my stomach churn. I couldn't do it. I couldn't be part of whatever this was becoming. The next few days were worse. Megan went out with friends, including Sophie. She came home late that night, her laughter too loud, her eyes too bright. I tried to ignore the uneasy feeling gnawing at me, but it refused to fade. Then, 2 days later, I stopped by my friend Christopher's house to pick up some tools. As we chatted, he mentioned something that made my blood run cold. Hey man, I was out running errands earlier and saw Megan. She walked into a health clinic. Everything okay? For a second, I froze. My mind scrambled for an answer. Yeah, probably just a checkup or something, I muttered, brushing it off. But inside, unease twisted in my gut. Why hadn't she mentioned going to a clinic? Why hadn't she said anything about it when she got home? That afternoon, I asked her casually, "So, what did you do today?" Megan didn't meet my eyes as she walked past. "Nothing special," she said. "Just went to the grocery store, picked up some stuff, then watched TV." She didn't mention the clinic. And that made my suspicion grow. Later, while she was in the shower, I did something I never thought I'd do. I checked her purse. My hands trembled as I sifted through it, until my fingers brushed against a crumpled piece of paper. A receipt. From the health clinic. For an STD test. My stomach dropped. My entire body went numb. Why would she get an STD test? Heart pounding, I slipped the receipt into my pocket and sat on the couch waiting. When she walked into the living room, still humming to herself, I held the receipt out in front of me. "What is this?" My voice was tight, barely controlled. Megan froze. Her eyes widened for a brief second before she looked away. Her shoulders slumped, and I saw it, the guilt washing over her like a tidal wave. She swallowed hard. "I didn't want you to find out like this, Frank," she whispered, her voice shaking. A cold dread filled my chest. "Find out what?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. Tears welled in her eyes. 2 days ago, when I went out with my friends, I slept with someone else. The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the gut. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. You what? I whispered, praying this was some kind of nightmare. She looked down, unable to meet my gaze. We met at the bar. We started talking, and one thing led to another. The world around me blurred. My wife, my Megan, had already made her choice. And now I had to make mine. I thought I might have caught something. I had some symptoms, so I got tested. Her voice trailed off, but it didn't matter. The damage was already done. Her confession shattered the last pieces of my world. You went to the clinic to get tested, I repeated, the words tasting like poison. The reality of it all slammed into me like a freight train. I can't believe you, I said, my voice rising with anger. You slept with someone else, and then got tested for an STD. You brought that into our marriage. The betrayal crashed over me in violent waves, leaving me drowning in disgust. I couldn't even look at her. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I never meant for it to happen this way, she sobbed. I wanted to try the open marriage thing, to feel excited again. It wasn't about you, Frank. It was about me. I love you. I never wanted to hurt you. Don't tell me you love me. I snapped, my voice like ice. You slept with another man, Megan. You violated everything we had. The room fell silent, heavy with everything that couldn't be undone. She stood there, trembling, while I struggled to process her confession. It felt like the ground beneath me had crumbled, like I was free-falling into nothing. I don't even know who you are anymore, I finally said, shaking my head. I can't look at you the same way. I exhaled, the finality of my words settling between us. This is over. I'm filing for divorce. Her face crumpled, but for a fleeting second, I caught something else, a glimmer of relief. Like she had been waiting for me to say it. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice breaking. But it didn't matter anymore. I don't want to hear it, I said, my tone final. We're done. She didn't argue. She just stood there, defeated, as I turned and walked out of the room, leaving behind the life I had once fought so hard to build. That night, I packed my clothes. A few essentials, whatever I could grab in the whirlwind of emotions. Then, without looking back, I checked into a hotel downtown. I needed space. I needed air. I needed to be anywhere but there. The next morning, I didn't hesitate. I filed for divorce. It was the only option, the only way I could breathe again. I couldn't keep living under the crushing weight of her betrayal. 2 days later, I went back to the house to pick up a few more things. It felt different, like it no longer belonged to me. Like the walls had soaked up all the hurt and betrayal and spat me out. Megan was sitting on the couch when I walked in, her expression unreadable. I got the results, she said, her voice tight. I stopped, my heart pounding. I'm positive, Frank. I have an STD. Her eyes filled with fresh tears. But I felt nothing. No sympathy. No anger. Just an empty, hollow ache in my chest. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I turned away, gathering the last of my things, avoiding her gaze. Then, without another word, I walked out the door for the final time. The following day, I went to the clinic, fear gnawing at me. The wait was agonizing. But when the results came back, my chest collapsed with relief. I was negative. At least I wouldn't carry the same burden she now had to bear. A few months later, the divorce was finalized. Megan tried to reach out, tried to apologize. But there was nothing left to salvage. The trust, the love, the life we had built was gone, shattered beyond repair. So, I focused on rebuilding myself. The pain didn't disappear overnight, but with time, I found a way to heal. Megan moved on, eventually leaving for another state to start fresh. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had a chance to start over too.